And now we're back to the normal mode and then night mode again. So this one was taken with the Pixel ultrawide sensor. This one was taken with the Huawei's ultrawide sensor. I believe this one was taken with the Master AI enabled, and then this one was taken with the Master AI disabled. Now, both have like, so at first I do like take images with Master AI enabled and disabled, but and then I get bored and stop taking it with the Master AI disabled all the time, starting from like later. I will let you guys know later. So anyways, this is what you get out of the camera, and the exposure time is really similar with the Pixel having less ISO. In terms of overall quality of the image, this is when the Pixel is good in its normal night mode, normal photos. When you're not pointing at the sky, it really did a good job at hiding that noises. But if you were to zoom in, you can kind of like figure it out. So yeah, this is when the Pixel like did a good job when you're not pointing at the sky. But for the Huawei, it does have that better exposure compared to the Pixel. Like it does brighten up this part, but then again, you can tell there are a lot of noises and then like artifacting. So it's not really praiseworthy by any means. In terms of rendition of detail, I'd like to believe that the Huawei did it better because here you can tell that this part of the tree here gets smudges a lot when compared to the Huawei that kind of like maintains its sharpness or and exposure. Also, this part here is rendered a lot better when compared to the Pixel, and this is just the same with both images. So the thing that I found out is that both image, even with Master AI enabled and disabled, it does appears to like render almost the same image at night. But I feel like the only difference here is that how it rendered the sky, or maybe I was making a mistake because I can't really I can't really tell any difference between these two images. In terms of accurate color rendition, I would give it to the Huawei because the street light here is supposed to be white-ish, while the Pixel here is like rendering it with white tone, but also have that greenish tone going on. In terms of the street light, the Huawei does have that bad rendition, like fails to like control the light flares, while the Pixel does it more gracefully. So in terms of details of this brick here, I feel like both are similar. Maybe the Pixel is a lot, the Huawei is a lot better here, but then again, yeah, I feel like this part here a lot better. But then again, considering that the Huawei does over sharpen, and then the Huawei also has that the larger sensor and the larger aperture, so it is bound to like kind of create a well exposed photos. But then again, the noise control on the Pixel and then the light flares control on the Pixel is much more graceful when compared to Huawei. But in terms of rendition of the street lights, the Huawei did it better here. Like it is much more closer to reality, while this part here is off, and also this part here is like very whitish. So it is what it's supposed to be. So what the street light color is supposed to be. So yeah, I like the way the Huawei exposed this image, but also introducing a lot of artifacting and then noises. But yeah, in terms of like exposure, I really do like for Huawei, I like the way it exposed the image and also its quality. Even though it's not like by a huge margin, it is much is not much better, but it is that better than that of Pixel. But then again, I do wish the Huawei has that like bigger ultra wide sensor instead of this because it's not really that wide. So again, the winner for this set of images goes to the Huawei because how well it exposes the image. But if you don't zoom in, because when you zoom in, it starts to fall apart really quickly. So yeah, again, I would like to give the win to the Huawei. And now we're looking at the sets of images from the main sensor, taken with normal mode. This one is from the Pixel, this one is from the Huawei with the Master AI enabled, and this one with the Master AI disabled. So I do believe all of them shares the same amount of shutter speed, while the Pixel has that higher ISO again. Now, the Pixel maintains its darker exposure rendition, while the Huawei kind of like goes for that better, brighter exposure, while and then allowing a lot of noises coming through. Now, again, the Pixel is more graceful at controlling the light flares because you can see here the light from the street light doesn't really affect the tree. Now, in terms of quality, I do believe they offer the same quality, just because of how the Pixel is darker. It might give the illusion of better light noise or better noise control, but I really like the way the Huawei renders this image because this is again a semi-night processing image, like semi-night processing going on. And even with that semi-night or semi-night processing going on, it still can do this much. Like it can bring out this much exposure. And then you can even tell that here there is maybe some lemongrass or just some random grass. But yeah, in terms of like exposure, I really prefer the Huawei here because despite the pixel maintains a darker exposure is not as pleasing. But yeah, again, but as I always mentioned since the start of this nighttime comparison, having option to like control the intensity of night processing is really good. So I wish all phones comes with that control. But then again, I find the Huawei here really pleasing. And in terms of color, in terms of sharpness, rendition of the sharpness, I believe that the Huawei seems to do it better. But always remember that the Huawei do have that over sharpening in their algorithm. So yeah. So again, for this set of images from the main sensor, I definitely going to give the win to the Huawei just because how well it exposes image, how well it's kind of like maintain certain part of the details and like control the noise, even though it's not doing that well. But in terms of what is more important to me is like how pleasing is the image. So I'm going to give the win to the Huawei for this sets of images. And now we're looking at the sets of images from the ultra-wide sensor with the night mode turned on. Again, I would like to remind you that the accuracy of this, like how the pixel records its shutter time, it might be wrong. So it is what it is. Anyways, this one was taken with the Pixel ultra-wide sensor, and this one was taken with the Huawei's ultra-wide sensor. And for this image, I just don't want to bother to like use its master AI, so I just keep it disabled. So for this image, the Pixel goes for more punchy approach when compared to the previous images. The previous images just keep it dark, and then kind of like the light is off, like the color of the rendition of the house light is off. While here, the Pixel choose to get that more punchy images, but it also helps to it also did better at cleaning up the sky, like the noises in the sky. But you can still see the noises here, and then also on the tree here. As for the Huawei is doing terrible job at controlling that light flares, and then the Huawei choose to have that paler rendition of the situation, while the Pixel here is punchy. It's not really that accurate to the situation, or like that situation, but it is kind of closer, but also like not really accurate. So anyways, in terms of details, I feel like the Huawei did it better, but then again, it is because of the larger sensor and aperture opening. But in terms of like really detailed, so it's not really super detailed by a lot, it's just a little bit detailed. And then the way of Huawei control the noises is also terrible, like you can tell by looking at the tree here, and here, even on the sky. So in terms of usability and practicality, I'm going to pick the Huawei as the winner for this set of images, despite it being a little bit more punchy, or like a little too punchy for my liking. But then again, it is more pleasant, and it does a good job at controlling the light flares, and also did a better job at controlling the noises. And now we're looking at the main shot taken with the night mode. This one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now, again, the Pixel did a better job at controlling the light flares, while the Huawei is just blowing it up. The Huawei does have better exposure, a little tiny bit better exposure, but it also introduced noises, a lot of noises in the image. Even the noises even affected this almost all part of the image, even on this tree here. But it does do a lot better on this down here. But like you can tell, there are a lot of noises in this image. While on the Pixel, because of how the algorithm choose to like keep things in the dark, there are barely noticeable amount of noises except for this area. So even if we were to take a look at the part down this image, there isn't really obvious sign of noises. So yeah, and in terms of like quality, I feel like the Huawei kind of like maybe did it better, but maybe I made a mistake, because I feel like the Huawei is a touch sharper, or maybe not. I feel like both are similar. It's just that the Huawei has more of that noises, giving it illusion of that sharper image. Anyways, the Huawei is always going to have that over sharpening effect, so that maybe just kind of like a placebo or whatever. So yeah, for this image, I kind of find the one that was rendered by the Pixel more pleasing. So I feel like the Pixel ability to like control the light flares and then control or clean the noises in the sky is also praiseworthy. So in this set of images, I believe that the win does deserve to go to the Pixel. So for this set of images, I give the win to the Pixel. And now we have sets of normal mode taken with the ultra-wide sensor. This one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now the Pixel has that like pale rendition, similar to how the Huawei has that pale rendition in its night mode. like I'm sorry, like it's night mode. So this is like the normal mode. And as you can see, whenever you're pointing at the sky, the pixel is going to have hard time to clean up the image, or it's just literally give up. So you can see like the noises affecting the whole image, even this house here. And then the color rendition of the house is also wrong. It's supposed to be white, not blue. As for the Huawei, it's kind of do a tad better job at controlling the noises. And then in terms of exposure of the sky, it is kind of it is acceptable. Like you barely notice noises here, while the pixel you notice a lot of noises in this roof part of this image. Now the color rendition of the house, the street, the light from the house, this part here is okay, like it is near accurate, but here it is going blue, also blue, even though the light is supposed to be white. Now both are not doing a good job at the flares because both have that crazy flaring effect, but in terms of better control over flares, I'm going to give it to the Pixel because you look at the Huawei, what is this? But I have also to praise the Huawei for the accurate rendition of the color of the light here, because the street light here is supposed to be very orange. In terms of the ground or the writing, I feel like I'm sorry. I noticed that the Huawei has better rendition, like better sharpness compared to the Pixel. But then again, there are the difference of how wide the ultra wide sensor is. 80 millimeter versus 30 millimeter. The Huawei has the larger aperture and larger sensor, while the Huawei has smaller sensor and smaller aperture. So it is bound to not look good. But if I'm seeing this right, I feel like the Pixel seems to have better exposure here. But then again, it is a lot of noise, while the Huawei here decided to keep it dark. But, in terms of the pleasantness of this image, I don't really like the way how the Huawei renders this image, because the light here is like almost yellowish orange. Like this is not, it's pale orange instead of like dark, like very orange. So in terms of pleasantness, I'm definitely going with the Huawei just because how well it rendered the image and how well it cleaned up the noises. And the detail here is also much better than that of the Pixel. I just kind of wish the Huawei P40 Pro ultra wide sensor is a lot more wider than this, but it is what it is, so the win goes for the Huawei in this set of images. And now you're looking at the sets of images taken with the normal mode on the main sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, one thing that I noticed when reviewing this photo is that the Huawei doesn't appear to be in focus, so I'm not sure if this is the AI or algorithm error or human error, while the Pixel here is sharp and like better at rendering this whole image. In terms of the sky, both has that better, a lot better rendition, or like able to control the noises a lot better, especially for the Pixel. But if we were to take a look like at these images like this without zooming in, I feel like a lot of people can notice there are some noises on these images, like on the Pixel rendition of the sky. While the Huawei does a better job at smoothing things out, you can still tell that there are noises. But if you were to take a look at this and like without zooming in, you can tell that the Huawei algorithm does a better job at kind of like cleaning up the image. Now, in terms of practicality here, I'm going with the Pixel because it does render it sharp with proper amount of detail, while the Huawei seems to be missing its focus. I'm not sure where the focus went. So I feel like the more pleasing image here is the Pixel, just because how well it controlled the noises, while the Huawei failed to get the focusing right. So yeah, the win here in this set of images should go to the Pixel. And now we have images from the night mode. This time was taken with the ultra wide sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now the Pixel here seems to be like bouncing back and rendering the sky with less noise. In terms of the sharpness and details, the Huawei appears to have better details rendition, but it could also be the Huawei AI sharpening the photos. And in terms of control over light flares, the Pixel do a better job compared to Huawei, that is overexposing and then also like having this multiple pillar light. And looking at the images like from far, you can't really tell there are noises, but if you were to zoom in, you can see the image clearly. In terms of the exposure, the Huawei is a lot better, but also makes the part of this image smudgy. In terms of quality here for this part of images, I feel like the Huawei did it better with minimal amount of noise, while the Pixel has a lot more noise. But then again, both of them does take blows or like trade blows. So in terms of winner, I will pick the winner. I will pick the Pixel because how well it controls that light flares and how well it renders the sky. In terms of quality, it definitely goes to the Huawei, just because it is like, but then again, it does have that larger sensor and larger aperture opening. But yeah, for me, I feel like the pleasant one here is the Pixel, even though both doesn't render the color accurately. And then again, the Huawei does go back to its paler rendition of the image when using the night mode, while this one here doesn't use the night mode, the normal modes. So yeah, almost like so. And then when we use the night mode, the Huawei does have that saturation going on again. But then again, for this ultra wide sensor images, I will again pick the Pixel as the winner. And now you're looking at the last set of images from this location taken with the main sensor also on night mode. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, one thing that I noticed when checking this image is that the Pixel did a better job at cleaning up the noises in the sky and also controlling the light flares, while the Huawei still is the same. You can even tell how obvious the noises in the sky is even without zooming in, but it does get more obvious when you are like zoom in to the photos. And then the details or the ability to maintain details is a lot better on the Pixel, especially here you can almost read what is written on this poll here, internet poll or whatever, while the Huawei is just like smudges. In terms of exposure, the Huawei did it a lot better here compared to the Pixel, but introduced some kind of noises, while the Pixel is keeping it dark and also kind of like feels like it looks digital if we were to zoom in. But other than that, the Pixel really did a great job at kind of like rendering this image, and has that sharper or like at least a tad detailed image rendition. Now the color of the lights from the house is still off. It is always going to be blue. Like in most cases, the house color reproduction on Pixel will always be blue. That is like something that is obvious if you were with me since the beginning. While the Huawei sometimes goes back and forth. Sometimes it does recreate a very good white, while here it's kind of like go off, has still have that bluish tone. But other than that, I really stand by the fact that Huawei do have that better exposure, albeit with a lot slower shutter speed. Now, as for the Pixel, I don't think it's really recording that shutter number accurately, because even when with taking image with night mode, it still has that like high number. Like I feel like it's 3 to 6 seconds. So this recorded number here is not true, but whatever. So the winner for this image definitely goes to the Pixel, because how clear or clean the image is, and then how much better it is at preserving the detail, while the Huawei is kind of like having this motion blur going on, and then there are a lot of noises, especially in the sky area. So yeah, the win does goes to the Pixel for these sets of images. And now moving to another area. So this one was taken on the normal mode with the ultra-wide sensor. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now both share nearly the same amount of shutter speed, and the Huawei has that higher ISO. In terms of like the cleanliness of this image, the Huawei did a lot better at masking the noises, but it's really doing a terrible job at like fixing the light flares. While the Pixel do it better, but at a cost of introducing a lot more noises. So I kind of preferred that if Pixel kind of like just put a black sky all over, and then nobody could like tell that the sky is like having color in them. So it's like, unless there are comparisons. So yeah, I feel like it's better to just like let the sky be red, or I mean, sorry, let the sky be black, so that it hides this like ultra wide sensor weakness. Anyways, in terms of the color rendition, the street light color rendition here is more correct on the Pixel, while the color of the street light here is supposed to be white, but with a tinge of yellowish. I feel like the Huawei did a better job at rendering that look, and also the color of the grass is much more accurate to real life, while the Pixel goes for that very punchy green. In terms of like details, yeah, the ultra wide sensor at night is not really that good. But for the rendition from the normal mode for the ultra wide sensor, I think the win does goes to the Huawei, just because how well it is at controlling the noises in the sky. But still, it is very terrible at controlling those light flares. But the color rendition of the grass and the street light, the closer street light, is a lot more close to what I see in reality, so it is pleasant. While this one is like a lot, while the one for Pixel is like a lot too saturated, so it's kind of like too much for me to take on. So yeah, the winner for this set of images goes to the Huawei. And now moving on to the set of images from the main sensor taken on the normal mode. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, the Pixel again has that punchy, vibrant, or saturated reproduction. But it did a better job at cleaning up the sky. So the noise when you look far away without zooming in, it is the noises from in the sky or on the sky is barely noticeable unless you zoom in, like you can start seeing it. Here, both are not doing so good at controlling the noise. So yeah, I mean, controlling the light flares. For the sky noise, if we look without zooming in, I feel like the Huawei kind of do a better job. And then also the light flare is kind of like help masking it. But if we were to zoom in, you can kind of see like the Huawei really did a much better job at hiding the noises in the sky. Now, in terms of noises or like in terms of details, I feel like the Pixel has more amount of detail. In terms of streetlight color reproduction, I believe this time the Huawei reproduced it more accurately, similar to how it's reproduction. So like doesn't change much. Like the color of like from the ultra wide to the main sensor doesn't really have much jump, except for the color here that goes a little more orange, which is closer to real life. So, but one thing that I would like to point out is that the Pixel is able to render this white yellowish, almost like has a tint of yellow color from this closer street light. Like, yeah, it is doing more accurately, but in terms of what is more pleasing to me and something that is not really overwhelming, I would pick the Huawei as the winner for this main sensor shot on normal mode. So yeah, I kind of like the way it is kind of like making it almost near accurate. Like the color is of the grass is not super punchy compared to the Pixel. So yes, I stand by my word. The Huawei does have better rendition in this sets of images. So yeah, the winner does goes to Huawei. And now we have a 5x shot taken with the periscope sensor on the Pixel, while the Huawei utilizes its standard or the main sensor to capture this 5x shot. So of course the sensor, because of its small opening and then it's not so large sensor, it is the image outcome is rather darker. As I said, I kind of like this dark exposure. Like if you don't like have any other photos for comparison, you won't even remember that this was taken like in a very bright sky. So yeah, unless you are someone who like looking at the sky and like having photos comparison. So here I do prefer the rendition from the Huawei. It is brighter and then the color of the street light is more accurate, but I kind of wish it keeps the sky dark. In terms of details, I kind of like the way how Pixel cleans up the image. The Huawei did it too, but it feels less detailed because it is again not taken with its periscope sensor, just using its main sensor. I kind of like the way Huawei exposed this car here better than the Pixel. So yeah, the Huawei does have the better exposure, but sometimes it is best to like keep certain things in the dark, like this building here and then the sky here in the dark, and also this part here in the dark because it is not the subject of the image. The rendition here I kind of like, but it is like too dark for me, and then the color accuracy is like way off. The light's supposed to be orange like this and not like this on the Pixel. So yeah, I feel like this image could do a lot better if it has better exposure or brighter exposure. So for me, I will pick the Pixel for its normal mode 5x rendition because of how it is like generating a more pleasant image. Like even if the Huawei has that brighter exposure, it utilizes the main sensor, so it's not gonna have that better quality. So like the quality does fall apart and it feels artificial. Like the artificialness is way obvious when you zoom in, while the Pixel is more on the natural side, but still some of like AI fixing is going on in the background. But I also kind of enjoy how it kind of like keep things in the dark. Like this is a lot better than the Huawei, but the color accuracy of the street light is not that accurate. But for the winner of this image, I feel like the Pixel did it better. So here I choose the Pixel as the winner for this set of image. And now we have that 10x zoom shot taken with the periscope sensor. Both are taken using the periscope sensor. So the Huawei will utilize its periscope sensor even when it's night. If you were to go up to 10x, like somewhere between 8x or 9x, it will switch to the periscope sensor. But if you go lower than that, it will not utilize the periscope sensor. So for me, the shutter speed is nearly similar, but the Pixel has that higher ISO. Now, here's when things get interesting. So here, the Pixel decides to have this greenish tint instead of the earlier kind of like rendition of the image. So this is kind of like weird because it's supposed to look the same because again we are capturing, I mean I am capturing with the same sensors, so I don't know what's going on, why I decided to like have this weird greenish look to it. And then I must say that even when in the viewfinder when taking this, like when I go to 10x and higher, it does have, it starts to have this flickering, like it does goes back and forth between this and this. But then again, when I click the photo, it decides to like go with the greenish tint. So that's that. So again, as for the accurate representation of the image, I will definitely go with the Huawei. But here you can kind of like see, or maybe not, maybe I made a mistake. So the Huawei did try to like clean up the noise. Like you can see the sharpening, or like the AI is like doing extra work, so make it like making the noise barely visible, while the Pixel is like having noises all over the image. But this part of like this roof here is rendered better than on the Huawei. Like I feel like maybe I made a mistake, but I'm not sure. Like yeah, in terms of exposure, the Huawei seems to have better exposure, but since the Huawei 5X periscope zoom sensor has that haziness, cloudy, or fade filter going on hardware level, it might give the illusion of better exposure. So I'm not sure if I want to trust this image or not. But yeah, this is what you get with the Pixel, and this is what you get with the Huawei. For me, I don't want to pick a winner, but if you were to ask me which one that represent the real life more accurately, I would say the Huawei did it a lot better, because the Pixel just go ahead with this greenish tone to it. So yeah, for this set of images, I'm definitely going to give it a win to the Huawei. And now we're taking a look at the night mode images, sets of night mode images in the same location. This one was taken with the ultra-wide sensor, this one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now, again, the Pixel maintain always kind of like prefer that vibrancy in its night mode. So it's kind of like bump up with those like colors, especially in the green grass here. The Huawei here looks kind of dull, but it is actually closer to reality because of how you kind of like used to this picture, and then like you kind of feel like the one from Huawei is kind of dull. But the truth is this one is much more closer to reality. In terms of the noise reduction, I feel like the Pixel here does a better job, because if we were to take a look at the image without zooming in, it's like it looks super clean. But if we were to zoom in, you can kind of like see the noise, but still very not so like almost unnoticeable. As for the Huawei failed to control its light flare. This is something that's going on like forever, so that's that. The Huawei here is like using this light flares to like cover the sky, so you can't really tell which one is a cloud and which one is like the light flare. So this light flare is doing a favors, but I think we can see some of that like noises here down here. In terms of quality, I feel like the Huawei has better rendition if we were to take a look at the grass here, but I might be completely wrong. How about the 10 here? I feel like the Huawei is kind of more detailed, but that's acceptable because it is bigger sensor and larger aperture has larger aperture opening. So for me, I'm going to give the win to the Pixel because of how well it rendered the sky and how clean the image is. I might reduce the saturation or like the control or like the vibrancy in the set in the editing app later, but as of now, this is a lot better than Huawei. Huawei is like the lens flare is so jarring and it's not really that pleasing to look at. But yeah, this one, the Huawei one, the one from Huawei is closer to reality, while the Pixel is bumping up the shadow. I mean, bumping up the colors, especially the grass. But for this sets of images, I think the win deserves to go to the Pixel. And now we have night mode taken with the main sensor. This one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now the Pixel again maintain its saturation or like like very color reproduction, while the Huawei is paler or like pale dull, but it is actually the better rendition of the image, like the better in the sense that it is closer to reality. Now again, the Pixel here did a better job at controlling the noises and then light flares. Still some light flares here, but it is cleaner than what is going on with the Huawei. The Huawei is again using those light flares to mask the noises in the sky, and then again you can't really tell what was going on with the sky. You can't really tell which one is a cloud and which one is a light flare. So that's that. In terms of color rendition, this street light here is actually more accurate to reality compared to the Pixel, more orange. Like it is like light orange. But then again, if we were to pick a winner, I mean, if I were to pick a winner, I will definitely choose the Pixel here, because how clean this overall image is compared to Huawei. Huawei is like very overwhelming, especially the clouds area, even though it is closer to reality. So in terms of detail, I feel like here the Pixel has better detail, but I might be wrong. I feel like Yes, the Huawei appears, I mean, the Pixel appears to have better rendition of the detail. Um, but yet it's not like a huge jump between the two. It's just that a little like sharpening up going on. So yeah, so for this image sets of images, I will pick the Huawei as, I mean, I will pick the Google as the winner. And now we have the 5x shot. This one is from the periscope sensor taken with the Pixel, while the Huawei uses its main sensor to take this 5x shot. So here is here is not really a fair comparison because both phones are using different sensor. So in terms of like quality and sharpness, I feel like it. No, I feel like not I feel like I noticed that it does goes to the Pixel because again it is using its periscope sensor while the Huawei is just using its main sensor. So yeah, the quality is really not there. It's not there. Because of the Huawei using its main sensor, it is able to hide the noises of this upper part of this or the cloud area a lot better than the Pixel. The Pixel has these noises coming through. Of course, the Pixel is rendering the image wrong here because this part here is being affected by that greenish tone, and like this image has that greenish tone going on, but it's not as strong as this one. This one is just terrible. But yeah, it is a lot better than the normal mode. The night mode does work a lot better. But in terms of like quality, it is a lot better than the Huawei. I feel like this is acceptable except for the wrong color rendition. Because of how the quality alone, and that's, yeah, I feel like the quality alone, I'm going to pick the Pixel 5x shot as the winner for this sets of images. And now we have 10x zoom shot taken with the night mode turned on. This one was taken with a periscope sensor. This image was taken with a Pixel, and this image was taken with the Huawei that also utilizes its periscope sensor. Now, the Pixel, like the Huawei here, has that haziness going on, like it is even obvious in night time. While the Pixel here has a better detail and a lot cleaner image. Now, if you were asking like, what if I use the editing tools demist effect to kind of like fix this image? This is what I get. So yeah, it's not really good. It's not like gonna make the image a whole lot better. It's just making it looks weird. So yeah, definitely I don't use it. So one thing that I want to show you guys that how hard it is to maintain stability between this shot. Like for Huawei, it is so hard to kind of like maintain a perfect or like usable stabilization. So that's that. As for this shot, I think everyone would agree that the Pixel rendered the image a lot better than Huawei. Huawei has this haziness going on, and then details rendition is not there enough, like not enough. Also, the haziness is not helping either way. The Pixel has the kind of like darker exposure and not really good. But in terms of usability and practicality, even though the Pixel is like rendering the color wrong, I feel like for these sets of images, the win should go to the Pixel, just because how almost practical or how almost pleasant it looks. So for these sets of images, I'm just going to skip until we find that 5x sensor shot because it is just similar. Like the rendition for this image is similar to what I've mentioned earlier, so it's not like really that important to talk about. So here we are at the 5x shot. So for the Pixel, it does uses its periscope sensor while the Huawei uses its main sensor. Now the Huawei, again, with its better exposure and then more accurate to real life rendition, here the Huawei managed to kind of like control the light flares better than the Pixel. But yeah, the Pixel has that kind of like sharp pillars going on, so it's not really kind of like the rendition like but then again, both are doing well. So here the Pixel has that darker rendition, and this was taken with the normal mode, not night mode. If we were to zoom in, you can tell how fake this image feels like. As for Huawei, it does also feel fake. But the color rendition of the grass here is so much better on the Pixel compared to Huawei. Huawei just like increased the green. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe the cars like the Huawei managed to capture like the light from the car from the street to like but this one like to already turn it off or like not seeing it. So whatever. So this one I feels like it's wrong to give the Huawei the win because of it's not using its 5x sensor. So it's not using its sensor. I mean periscope sensor. It just uses its 1x sensor, main sensor. But in terms of rendition, like street light rendition and then color rendition, the Huawei actually portrays it more accurately, except for this part of the grass here which the Pixel does it better. Yeah, for this image, I feel like I don't want to give any win to any of this just because it's not like like the Huawei here is like cheating, and the pixel here is like dark. Both doesn't render this image that well. But then again, the Huawei is more digital, like especially this part of the card, while the Pixel is trying hard to like render it better. But then again, I don't think I should give a win to any of these images. So moving on to next images. And now we have the 10x shot taken with the periscope sensor on both devices. It is using normal mode. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. But before I start, I want to show you guys that sometimes the Pixel has that tendency to like not being in focus or like having a hard time to focus on a subject. So most image came out blurry. Anyways, this is what I get with the Huawei and the Pixel. So the Pixel again maintains its way of controlling the light flare, like having that light pillar in the middle, while the Huawei just keeping it round, nice and round. The Huawei again with its haziness, which kind of like help it in hiding the noise, while the Pixel here is like noisy all over the place. Like you can't barely tell what's going on with this, if this is grass or smudges or whatever. So like there are like smudges everywhere, and here you can only tell that there's a car. But for the Huawei, you can tell there are cars and the pole and then cars. So like the noise here is better hidden, but both of them are not great, and I don't think any of these deserve a win. Just because like both are just terrible and not really usable. But in terms of pleasantness, I feel like the Huawei is a lot more pleasant. Just because how well the haziness effect is hiding the noises. But yeah, moving on to the next images. We have sets of images taken with the night mode, but I'm just gonna go ahead and skip all of them because they are just nearly the same, so it's nothing really changing. So here we have the 5x shot taken with the periscope sensor on the Pixel, while the Huawei utilizes its main sensor. Now, right off the bat, you will notice that the Pixel has better rendition. Like here, the Huawei takes 6 seconds, but here, like, don't trust the Pixel shutter data here because they are wrong. It does take about 3 to 6 seconds, but I don't remember much. So here the rendition from the Pixel is a lot better and the image is a lot brighter, and now you can like tell car. But then again, it is quite artificial, like there are smudges, so it's not really well detailed. Here I feel like no, like you can't really read what's going on. The noises here is I mean I feel like the I noticed that the Pixel algorithm is doing a sort of good job at kind of like removing or reducing the noises. There are, you can see like the noises only like limited to the cloud part or like the sky part of the image. So even with the periscope sensor, again, it does maintain this weird pillar shape kind of like light. But then again, I do kind of like accept this. So behind here, not really detailed. So as for the grass, yeah. For these sets of images, I'm definitely going to give the win to the Pixel just because how well it exposed the image, and then how it kind of like give you kind of like better rendition of the car. But then again, it's not really great. But then again, I think the Pixel deserved the win because the Huawei just utilized its main sensor. So moving on to the next images. And now we have 15x zoom shot taken with the periscope sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now for the Huawei, I just want to show you guys how kind of like hard it is for me to take the image, like to really stabilize the camera, because this is the picture. All of this picture was taken handheld, so that's that. Now here you notice that the Pixel does do a better job at rendering the image. Like it is much more cleaner, albeit it introduced some noise here and here. As for the Huawei, again, its haziness is like blocking or hiding, help in masking the noises. But if I were to use the editing tools and the dim feature, you'll get this kind of image. Now, it doesn't make the image a lot better. So yeah, it's just like heavily edited, heavily processed, and that's still not looking good. So we're not gonna use that. So as for the Pixel, you can sort of read what was written on this electric pole here. Like you can read that the THH841 off or whatever. So here you can kind of like see how much better the rendition is of the 15x shot rendition of the 15x shot on Pixel is compared to Huawei. And I feel like here you should I should give the win to the Pixel. And yeah, that's that. I feel like the Pixel deserves this just because how well it is like rendering the image without making it like heavily processed like what the DMIS feature on Huawei just did to this image. So yeah, the win goes to the Pixel for these sets of images. And now we're going to look at the image from different location. This sets of images is taken with the normal mode. So this one is from the Pixel ultrawide sensor and this one is from the Huawei ultrawide sensor. Now, I feel like these two is the closest rendition to each other, especially this part of the image here. if you can tell. So in terms of color accuracy or rendition accuracy, the Huawei is closer to reality, but the street light in both images are way off. Um, in terms of detail, uh, the Pixel did it way worse and also has this kind of like bluish tone going on, while the Huawei has better image rendition with detail and not being affected by the blue tone as much. Also, what I notice here is that the pixel is kind of no longer being affected by its extra saturation, the thing that you see previously or earlier in this video. So that's that. I don't know why I decided to like go to a more paler rendition now. Even it is even paler than what is being represented on Huawei. So yeah, um, for these sets of images, I'm definitely going to give the win to the Huawei because how well it renders this image. But again, with Huawei, I just kind of wish it has that larger sensor. Oh, I mean, larger field of view instead of this because this is just feels way too close. So that's that. Again, another set of images, same location, but this time was taken with the main sensor. So this one was taken with the Pixel, and this one was taken with the Huawei. Now, the Pixel here, again, goes with the paler rendition, while the Huawei is more, like, saturated. But then again, the street light color here is still off. But between these two, I definitely prefer Huawei here because it is close as to what we get to real life. In terms of detail, I feel like both has the same amount of detail. But then again, you have to keep in mind that the Huawei do have do have that extra sharpening or like over sharpening built into the camera algorithm. So yeah, it might not be like rendering the whole thing correctly, or like you might kind of like it might give the illusion of more detail. But then again, it's not that well. It's not doesn't it automatically means it has more detail. It's just the over sharpening giving you the illusion of details. So that's that. Um, I feel like both has nearly the same rendition, except the Pixel did render the road here a lot better than the Huawei, while the Huawei has kind of like noises or like smudges there. So the winner for these sets of images, I'm going to give it for the Huawei because how well it is rendering the image. It is as closest to what I see in real life as possible. While the Pixel rendition here is just way too pale for my liking, but it does able to like render better details, road details, especially on the road here, but it's not like really changing it a lot. So, and then it is also being affected by the bluish tone. I don't know where this bluish tone coming from because the light here are like white, yellow, and then orange. Like the white, I mean, the source of light behind me is white yellowish, while the street light here is supposed to be very orange. So I'm not sure where the bluish tone coming in, but whatever. As I said, I picked the winner as the Huawei for this set of images as the Huawei just because it is how close it is to the real life. And now we're looking at the sets of images taken with the periscope sensor at 5x. So this one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now, the Huawei here utilizes its main sensor, as you can see on its f-stop here. Now, both takes the same amount of time to render, while the ISO on the Pixel here is a lot higher. Anyways, since the Huawei here is kind of like cheating, I can't really like judge it, like giving it like a fair judgment because, in the end of the day, it is like utilizing its main sensor, so it is kind of like brighter, but also the image quality does take a hit a lot. But as for the Pixel 5x periscope sensor shot, it has darker rendition, but it does try to kind of like fix this part of the image. Like it tried to like render these letters here or words here. Like it did attempt to, but then again, the overall kind of like quality and exposure is not really that great. The good news is it's not. I don't think it was being affected by the same bluish tone that was going on with the previous 1x and ultra wide sensors zoom. So that is a good thing. But then again, the exposure here is pretty dark. But then again, but you can also kind of like tell what is you're seeing. In terms of quality, of course, the Pixel do it better because the Huawei here is just using it 5x shot, like using its main sensor. So yeah, here is the Pixel is doing a lot better, but the exposure is kind of low. Like you can't really tell what's going on the tire. While here the Huawei kind of like show you what was going on with the tire. But then again, this image is so artificial that I don't really like looking at it. Honestly, I don't think any of them deserve any win in this sets of images, but I let you guys pick which one you like. Moving on to next images. And now we're looking at a set of images taken with the night mode turned on at the same location. This one was taken with a Pixel ultra-wide sensor, and this one was taken with a Huawei ultra-wide sensor. Now, one thing I noticed when reviewing this image, the Pixel did a lot better job at cleaning up the sky noises, but it does saturated the image, and it still have that bluish tone going on. Like this street or like source of light here are supposed to be white. Now the Huawei sky rendition is a lot better. It is more accurate to real life, but in terms of noise reduction, I feel like the Pixel really did a superior job. Now, the source of light from this house is correct in color. It is rendered as white, but this one is a little bit blue. So as for the Pixel, again, it has that pale rendition, and then it does have that motion blur going on, while the Huawei is also not doing very well. So again, even though the Pixel doesn't record its exposure time correctly, it does take up to 3 seconds and not down less than a second. So it is wrong. Honestly, for this set of images, I'm definitely going to give the win to the Pixel here because I like how it renders the street light almost correctly and how it renders kind of like how it renders the reflection of that street light on this brick ground here. Rather than Huawei is like giving it very blue and then like I'm sorry, not blue, but really this dark and then like over processed look to me. And then the rendition of the street light is just way off. So for Huawei, I like the way it renders the sky, while the Pixel, I like how it renders the street light. But then again, the color, there are some bluish tone going on. I'm not sure where those bluish tone coming from, but it is what it is. I feel like in this category, I don't think I will crown any of them as a winner because both of them are not doing that well. But it is also your opinion, so I want to hear your opinion in this. So comment below. Moving on to next images. And now we have the sets of images from the main sensor. This one was taken with a Pixel, and this one was taken with the Huawei. Now, both have night mode turned on. So from what I can see here is that the Pixel, again, with that paler rendition and also cooler tone. Like here you can see like the white, like the word here are supposed to be white, and you're gonna see how the bluish tint is like affecting the whole image, like especially here. But also you can like it is more obvious when we are looking at the light sources. Like here, they are all blue. The Huawei here is much more neutral and perhaps slightly warm, but it is kind of acceptable because then again you have like warm source of light. But here you see how the Huawei renders the image in much more neutral tone. Like the silver here is like really silver, and then the white color here is white. In terms of details, I feel like both has the same amount of detail. The exposure here is like the Pixel goes for that slightly darker exposure. Like you can like the rendition of this image of the brick here is like darker, while the Huawei is like that brighter. In terms of like the image or the noise reduction, though Pixel did it better, because it does like darken this part of this image, while the Huawei is like brightening it up and also like introducing this weird artifacting. But in terms of which one more accurate, I feel like the Huawei is more accurate. But the street light here is slightly off. It's supposed to be very orange, not this yellow. So that's that. So both kind of fail, but I kind of like the Huawei here because it is almost accurate to real life. And then the rendition, like its ability to like neutralize the white balance is just great. So I feel like the Huawei deserve the win for this sets of images. And now we have the sets of images taken with the 5x periscope sensor on the Pixel, while the Huawei utilizes its main sensor. Now both are taken with the night mode turned on. Now here, the rendition of this image is a lot brighter than what it is when you're not using the night mode. So as for, again, the Pixel maintains its paler side, and then, but here it's kind of, or is it kind of like having that still bluish tone going on? I feel like it does have that bluish tone going on. While the Huawei here, the image quality does take a hit because then again, it is using its main sensor to take this 5x shot. So in terms of like details, of course, the Pixel did it better, but also it does also introduce like a artifacting, like it's not really able to like render this words here properly. If we were to take a look around at the tire here, it's kind of like smoothing things out. So yeah, it's not really like the 5x sensor is not really doing a good job at like rendering this image. But if you don't zoom in, you kind of like it does appears to like have this nice rendition of this bike. Yeah, but for this image, I don't think it's fair to give the win to the Huawei because it does use its main sensor for its 5x shot. So I feel like the Pixel here deserves the win just because it is using its periscope sensor and it has enough light. So one thing that kind of like bothers me is that this location here, or this area here, has enough light for it to trigger its night sensor, but the Huawei's algorithm just refused to use the 5x periscope zoom. So we end up with the 5x night mode using the main sensor. So yeah, for this set of images, I'm going to give the win to the Pixel just because it is using the periscope sensor and the image rendition is a lot brighter than what it is in the normal mode. And then the rendition is okay, but if you were to zoom in, you can kind of see how smoothened it is. But then again, it is kind of like acceptable if we were to look at it this way or like without zooming in. So this is like the end or the last image in the comparison, like the whole comparison. If you manage to stay up to this image, I thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for